Hi, I'm Corey.
Hi, I'm Tess.
Welcome to A Lovely Place.
We're so glad you've joined us as we invite Jesus into the midst of our lives, learning, and laughter.
We hope this podcast can encourage your heart and make you smile today. Hello, Tess.
Hello, Corey. Oh, goodness, we made it.
We did. Chapter 6, and we're here and the computers talking together.
Yes.
Those are big accomplishments.
Yes.
I was trying to think.
Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel, in a couple chapters ago, she was talking about mastery and how that helps our journey of feeling like capable of and confident. And I feel like this journey through this book and through our podcast, it still continues to remind me that, we're making it, we're accomplishing something.
Yeah.
It feels nice especially to be making our way through this book, because I feel like it's probably the book that we've read that's taken the most concentration, I think, maybe.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
It does.
So,
well, I'm thankful for the time that it's happening and that we've been going slower through this summer. And I know this episode will come out, it looks like at the end of September. So many prayers that I'm praying right now when we're recording will most likely have been answered or in some way or another. And then, not that I want to wish away time before this or whatever, but I'm just thankful, and I'm saying yay to Jesus for being faithful right now in this moment while we're recording. Yes. And when this podcast releases, that he's the same every day, yes. Like yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Like I just love that. And I've even listened to a couple of our older episodes, and I'm just like, thank you, Lord, for speaking to us and into my heart. And yeah. So yay for listening along with us, friends. And thank you, Tess, for not giving up on, not that we were going to give up, but just this, like, we're going to keep doing it. Like, yes. So that's my shout out saying thanks to Jesus and thanks to you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah. I feel like it is a good, I don't know if analogy is the right word, but a good reminder, like as we've worked through the podcast and I don't know, is this like the 30th episode? I don't remember. But anyway, we're getting close to that either way. Yeah. And it's a good reminder that like things that are worthwhile are hard and may take time and, effort and blood, sweat, and tears, as they like to say,
Why are we bleeding? I'm just kidding. Yeah.
But it's worth it, and I think that this whole end emotional eating thing is worth it too, and is hard, but worth it.
Yes.
I've had to remind myself of that.
It will be episode 30.
Oh my gosh.
Or it is. It is right now. But even though it's in we're batching it, friends.
Yes, we're
putting
ahead.
Our principles in order.
Yes.
Yeah. So yay, 30 episodes.
That's crazy.
Way to go.
This chapter is called Minding Your Mind. It's really good and hard. So she talks about the way that our brains make connections, and that sometimes the connections our brains make aren't true. They may be true, but they may not be true.
Yeah.
And so to keep that in mind, like that sometimes the things that our brain is deciding on are not actually true things, which I think is a really good reminder. Like just because it's happening in our brain doesn't mean that it's accurate, Right. So she talks about the 3 common thinking patterns, which are comparisons, perfectionism, and rumination. And we can go over those a little bit more. But was there one that stood out to you that you feel like you struggle with the most?
I think you're cute because we read the same book and I wasn't paying attention to 1, 2, 3. Like I was just like all in my head, for lack of a better word. And then I had to go over it. So apparently,
oh, that's funny.
So I like that you have that outline, and I'm sure it's in the book, right? But but the rumination, I guess, thinking again and again. But
okay,
then you know what I decided after we finished reading this book? I'm going to read it again.
Yeah,
because I need a lot of help. Because I got stuck on the first sentence of when she said, let's change, or I wrote to, I don't know what it was, let's change my relationship with thinking. So I'm on page 1.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. So yay, friend. What was it? Comparisons,
perfectionism, and rumination. So I didn't feel so much pull towards comparisons, although I know that I do struggle with that when I spend a lot of time on social media. Or when I watch romantic movies. So I try not to watch those anymore. And I've been trying to stay off of social media for the most part, and that helps with that. But I found my struggle to be perfectionism and rumination. And I remember I've heard the word rumination before because me and my counselor talked about it a long time ago, my first counselor. Okay. And so apparently it is something that I struggle with. Yeah. But so she kind of explains what rumination is. And I found this to be, because I think everybody knows about comparisons and perfectionism, but she talks about rumination being something that we do to cope with distress.
Yeah, and use laughter when you're uncomfortable. Okay, friends, thank you.
And the word it comes from the word for talking about like a cow chewing its cud. It's like to chew over, like over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And but it's actually a form of avoidance. So when you ruminate, she said you're less focused on directly experiencing and expressing the current emotion and are more caught up in an abstract story. And that I really relate to because I like to tell stories in my mind. That just kind of happens, Yeah. So it's like being worried about the past instead of being worried about the future kind of a thing. Right. So, yeah.
I think when I first, because I reread the chapter again, like going over to make notes, and I think the rumination definitely was like a check in my spirit, like, oh yeah, where are you spending time, Corey? And I don't know if I've heard that word specifically, or was not easily recalled in my mind. Yeah. But I understood the cow chewing on things like, oh, am I freaking out about something? Well, yes, I am. So then it's like, and I'm not feeling things again. Like I keep I keep realizing that I'm not feeling things, even though I perceive myself as an emotional person. Yeah. But just because I have emotions doesn't mean I'm processing them. Like that's a different thing. Like I can cry, but it's like, but what's actually happening?
Yes. So
does that make sense?
It does. Being swept up in your emotions is different than recognizing them and feeling them for what they really are. Like and knowing why you're feeling them too. I think those are different skills. Yes. Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say I feel like someone can be very emotional, like, feel their emotions strongly without necessarily being in tune with their emotions.
And yeah. So that's a fun thing to realize. Like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. But I know going back to page 1 again, but just that picture of, she was like saying, have you ever observed a gentle elderly man or like a grandpa watching his grandchildren playing in the park? And I liked how that was like, what if I was being that kind to myself while I'm watching myself figure out what's going on. Like, because it's like,
right.
Oh, okay. And just like, just thinking of the look on my dad's face when he's hanging out with Riker. So much love and so much tenderness. And like, he loves him and supports him. And was it in this chapter they talked about a kid like learning to walk and nobody's yelling at them? Why can't you do that? Get up! Or what? I don't know. Maybe that was some other thing, but it was just like, no one's doing that. So why am I ruminating on all these thoughts, beating myself up, or trying to? Why haven't I figured this out yet? I'm 41, is what I feel like right now. So that's something to think about, but not to live in it.
Yes. Well, and I think she has a quote. There's a quote there that reminds me of that where, let's see, she says, both feelings and thoughts typically arise, peak, and fade unless you cling to them or ruminate on them. And she talks about ruminating. It's the opposite of active problem solving. It impairs your problem solving skills. It predicts depression, which I was like, oh, okay. And it erodes social support. So to me, it almost seems like this form of isolation because you get so lost in like this story that you're telling yourself or these not helpful thoughts that you're having.
Right.
And then you're not able to, like when you're stuck in that place, you're not able to connect with the people around you. And you're not able to connect with yourself. It's just like you're cutting yourself off. So, it's hard though. Sometimes I think it's hard to recognize that it's happening. And I think she was talking about that somewhere in here that,
in this book,
right. Where she was saying like, as you notice that you're having those thoughts, just to label them like, oh, right now I'm starting to ruminate, or instead of then feeling more guilty or whatever,
Well, and I guess the sticky note exercise was under perfectionism. I was trying to re-look at the pages now that I know there's 3 different things. But it was like, I don't even know if I know what I'm telling myself. I guess it was that comparison or being perfect. Anyways, but it was having you write down what you say about yourself and then decide if it's true or not, which made me think of a counseling session I had of, is this rational or irrational is what the context or whatever. My thoughts were going crazy. So it was like, are these, what's the words again? Rational
or irrational.
So that's what made me think of, even though there are different words in this chapter, but just the idea of, is this true or am I in the wrong? What's that other? How many illustrations can we use? Like what tape is playing in your head? That sounds like rumination to me. Like, especially if you're in the 80s, 90s with the cassette tape and you literally see the tape
you can see
going
it winding
from one to the other for you millennial friends.
Right. And then you turn it over and it does the same thing
Gen
again.
X,
right?
I mean.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and the perfectionism, that one hit me again too, because I struggle with perfectionism. It said, some people who aim to do their very best find themselves avoiding tasks out of fear that they won't do well enough. They may see things in all or nothing terms. They may catastrophize. You may consider yourself a total mess. I feel like she's reading my brain there.
It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And I do, that sticky note exercise is really good because she talks about like, what are some things that you say about yourself? Like, oh, I'm a hot mess, or, oh, I'm like really bad at, impulse control or whatever. And to like write those things on sticky notes and then put them on a piece of paper and to decide like, is that thing something that really defines who I am? Or is it just a thought I have about myself, and like think of yourself as the piece of paper, like not the sticky note, but the piece of paper. And to determine like, are these things really something that define me as a person, or are they something that I just am struggling with right now? Or, you know, that reminds me about a conversation I had with one of my children the other day who was saying some pretty mean things about me. And usually I just brush it off because I'm like, well, if he, gets a reaction out of me, that's probably what he's looking for. Mm-hmm. But then my counselor challenged me and was like, he's being really disrespectful to you. Like, you need to not react out of an emotional place, but you need to tell him that's not okay. And so I was like thinking, and I was like, well, I need to coach him on a better way to like do this. And I was like, okay, here's what you can say to me. Like, you can say, Mom, I don't like this thing that you did, and I'm really frustrated, or I feel sad because you did this, or I feel something because of what you did.
Get those I statements out
right?
there.
I was like, you can say those things. I was like, you cannot tell me that there are certain things about my character or myself as a person, all of these statements that you're making about me that have nothing to do with what's actually going on right now, like what we're interacting with each other. You're just saying all these things to be mean to me. And I was like, you can't do that. But it reminds me of the way we talk to ourselves. I think sometimes we do that to ourselves. Like, oh, you're an emotional eater. You're a, whatever it might be, instead of having the conversation like, I did this and it made me feel this way. And that's okay. Like, we can have those conversations with ourselves and be kind. Yeah. Like the lazy genius principle. Be kind to yourself.
Well, and I feel like it's like it's hard when, like, I feel like I'm learning all these new skills myself and then trying to teach them to someone else when I haven't learned them is challenging. And then sometimes I feel like, though, I'm too permissive. Like, I try to be too understanding, and it's like, no, we just need to have like, that's acceptable or not acceptable, and this is the consequence. like, wait a minute, like, I don't know, like, maybe I want more boundaries, or like, am I giving myself too much space to, like,
it's a hard, it's hard to find the best place to have those lines, like. But there have to be lines. Who was I listening to the other day? Oh, it was Elizabeth, Pastor Elizabeth. She was talking about guardrails, and that some of our emotions serve as guardrails for us to see, to have a stopping point before we rush to disaster, So it makes me think sometimes our emotions are a way for us to see like, oh, we're going in the wrong direction.
Let's rewind.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Yeah.
But I love what Jennifer's the author, right? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Where she brings in some of the research and the studies about this, and she says that studies have found that suppression, which is trying to rigidly stop thoughts, actually increases the frequency of the thought one is trying to suppress, and also increases the level of distress around that thought. And I think, like, if the biggest thing I think that has come out of me reading this book is just being able to see my thoughts and my feelings for what they are without judging myself for them. And I think, that was obviously the chapter on acceptance, but I feel like it's a theme that runs through this whole book. Is like trying to stop yourself from thinking something just doesn't work, but being able to see it for what it is and then move on to the next thing, without this like trying so hard to control it or use our own power to like fix it, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was like, I don't know if it was last night or the night before, because I think before I've talked about my body's having trouble physically, and I was teasing if I was a robot, moving around all crazy. And then just how I'm processing stress, physical stress, emotional stress, and how it shows up in my body. And then I just really wanted to go, like, we had eaten dinner, I think, and I just wanted to go to the kitchen and I wanted to eat something really bad. Like, I just was like, rah, I don't know if I had I don't know what was going on, but then I found myself walking toward the kitchen, and I'm like going, you're walking to the kitchen right now. What? Do you feel hungry? That's been my new question to ask myself first. Like, just let's be mindful about what's actually in your stomach or not, or whatever. And then it was like I had this choice for a second. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm not hungry. So that means I would be emotionally eating. Do I want to do that? Not really. And it was just like this moment of like intense, like, I never say anything out loud, but it was just like this weird moment. Right? Like, can I do this? Can I do it? And then it was like, okay, well, what if you like, so then I thought, well, what do I need to do tomorrow? So then I got busy with whatever that was and put those things in my hands. I don't know if it was about the podcast or if it was something doing with Riker the next day or something. So I don't know if that was avoiding or whatever, but I just moved on to the next thing. And then before I realized it, that feeling of wanting to eat whatever I was going in to eat, I don't even know if I picked at something, but I was like, oh, it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, this is what she was talking about. Like, I was just like, yay.
That's exciting.
So at least one time.
One time it worked.
One time it worked. I think there's probably been other times, but it just was interesting.
That's good.
Trying to remember, like, but it was a weird thing. And then that made me think of my counselor too. Like, she was saying the intense feeling doesn't last forever.
Yes.
Like, or like one time I was sitting in her office just really crying. And so she just let me cry really. I just cried a lot. And then eventually I was able to take some deep breaths. And then she was like, how do you feel now? And then she's like, did you see that? That was like an intense moment. And now you're okay again. And you weren't not okay when you were having that.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow.
That's good. Right?
So Jesus, help me is what I keep trying to say.
Yeah.
And then trying not to beat myself up that I can't do this more often. But it's like, wait, you did it.
You did it. Yes. And that reminds me of the chapter on surfing urges. You did it. You surfed. You surfed the urge.
I mean, even though I didn't even
know. What does that
mean?
So I love what she said at the end of this chapter. It's a little bit longer of a quote, but I want to read it. So it says, she's talking about unwanted thoughts. Mm-hmm. If you host a party and some unwanted guests arrive, would you rather spend the night consumed with anger about the party crashers, watching them roam from room to room, or enjoy the rest of the party and conversing with people you care about? You can better enjoy life's party when you're not weighed down trying to control unwanted visitors who may actually leave if you neither taunt them nor seat them after a few minutes. And goodness, I just love the way that she approaches that. Like, and can we just like think about our thoughts in a little bit more detached way like that instead of thinking that they define us? They're just some guests, and some of them are unwanted, some of them are wanted. Yeah. But we can go about loving and enjoying our life even though they're there, So
Well, and then going back to like a real dinner party, you're not inviting people you don't want to come over to your home usually, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what if you didn't even invite that person, that thought? I don't know. Like, we have some choices, but that's a good picture. Like,
yeah,
they didn't come and sit with me. They sat over there and then they left. Like, so I get that right? too. Like, wow. Like, oh, sorry, you're not. You're bye-bye.
Right. Yeah.
I'll just be. Yeah.
So, you want to read our verse for the day?
Yes, let's bring it back to Jesus again. This is 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. Likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Yes, all of you be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility. For God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. This was my highlight part. Casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. And so as Tess and I were talking about this verse and I was reading it, because I just remembered the casting the cares part. And then I was like, okay, what was going on around this verse? Like, what's happening? And this submitting to one another in humble humility. I was thinking, like, I'm not the expert on everything, and God's put people in our life and in our church, in our community to help us. And so I love that. And then that God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Like, if we're humble about, I have a problem with emotional eating, and being honest about it, but then not living in that and going, okay, Lord, I need you to help me with this. Please take this away, cast the cares. I don't go fishing, but whoo, it goes way out there.
Yes. So, well, and it makes me think too of the whole idea of the thoughts that we think. And Jennifer said, if you let go of trying to control thinking, paradoxically, you retain control. And just that idea that, like, you know, we're not, like, I think of like grasping something so hard, or like maybe when someone's trying to run away or something, like pulling them towards you. That's not going to like make for a good outcome, you know, but like letting go and just kind of acknowledging that, and the humility of being able to say, like, I'm not the one like completely in control, I think can help to change our perspective about things.
Kind of right sizes it a little bit. Like, oh, I don't have to live like that anymore. I get to, God has a different plan, and he knows his kids. Like, hey, Corey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you lean on me? Lean on me.
Well, and it reminds me something of my counselor said about, you know, because there were some things that I was talking about, and he was like, you kind of feel pretty powerless in that situation, don't you? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess so. And he was like, well, but you can take that power back by letting go, you being the one to let go of your expectation of control, or, you know, and then that puts the power back in your hands, that you've let go that you need to control everything. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yay.
But anyway, it was so nice to talk with you today, friend. And listeners, we're glad that you're here and glad that you're making it through this book with us. And we look forward to chatting with you next time.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.